Welcome to another episode of Power Alphas. I'm one of your co-hosts, Sabby Piscitelli. And as always, I got my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful fiance, Mandy Saccomanno. How you doing today, baby?
Three beautifuls.
That was
Even
three
Ben said.
beautifuls, yeah. It was an extra one.
Wow. Okay. I'm doing great. Thank you guys for joining. Very excited to be here.
How you feeling? Good?
Feeling good. Yeah. Feeling good. How you feeling?
I feel great. I'm actually really, really excited about this guest. Before we introduce him, I want to give him a little intro. Me personally, to me, this man right here is a perfect example how to carry yourself in the professional industry of wrestling. He's a perfect example of his work ethic, his passion, and how much he loves the business. Wherever this man has wrestled, he has been one half of a tag team champion. Wherever he goes, he puts on the best matches, hands down. Me personally, I had the privilege to wrestle him a few times, and he's probably the best in-ring worker I've ever had the privilege to wrestle against. And I'm just excited to get him on this show because I think a lot of people can learn from him. He's literally dominated at every organization he's been to. NXT champion, match of the year, best matches. WWE match of the year, best matches. Goes to AEW, currently FTR. He's one half of tag. I think he's champion right now. If not, he'll have all the belts eventually. But this man right here, I'm excited to dive into his mind of the wrestling world. Without further ado, Dave, how you doing, brother?
Damn, Sabby, that was a better intro than you gave Mandy.
It was, right?
Yeah, you got me blushing.
I love it. Look at the first of all, before we even dive into it, man, you got to tell me about all those championship belts you got behind that wall, man.
Yeah,
That's some beautiful looking belts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I thought when I first started making this whole basement, the whole bar area, I was worried that it was self-serving. And, Maria, my wife, she said, you've come from absolutely nothing. You should be proud of what you've accomplished. And one day you're able to show, you're able to give all this to Finley. You can explain to Finley what, her dad did. You can explain to Finley's kids what your dad did or what her dad did. And so I said, "Yeah, you're damn right. I'll
Absolutely.
You're damn right. You deserve all those.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I love it. No, you got to have that.
Yeah, that's all of our championship belts from Japan, Ring of Honor, Mexico, WWE. Let's see if I can move a little bit here. I don't know.
Wow, look
WWE,
at that, man.
And obviously AEW as well.
Wow.
So yeah, Dan or Cash and I are if I'm going to pat myself on the back, I might as well go ahead.
You better do it.
We're the only tag team in the world to hold the WWE NXT, the WWE SmackDown, the WWE Raw, AEW, AAA in Mexico, IWGP in Japan, and the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. And I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of both of you guys have watched where we've come from and what we've come from. And I'm very proud of what we've accomplished because I'm sure we'll talk about it, but this is all I've ever wanted to do in my life.
No, I love that.
You should be proud. That's amazing.
And,
Wow.
and you know what? And that's going to piggyback me into me kind of asking your first question. I know this is your passion. This is what you grew up loving. And what I admired about you when I first got to NXT, and I know we'll dive into that later. I was kind of a guy who came from another industry, another sport, and had success there. So I know a lot of times people get a little weary of those athletes coming over. But what I did admire about you was your passion and the way you conducted yourself as a professional, even when it was just an NXT at the kind of the beginning of. I guess they say NXT was, kind of started developmental, but it really wasn't. You guys kind of put them on the map. You became mega stars in NXT and then just continued to grow in SmackDown, Raw, like AEW, Japan, all that stuff. So I guess talk a little bit about where your passion started and where your routine and your work ethic kind of gets instilled as a young age, because obviously you love this business. So talk a little bit how it all began for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, saying all the nice things about me in NXT, I think that, I got along great with you and I got along great with Mandy too, especially like later on in our WWE careers.
I was scared of you in the beginning.
Well,
I'll talk about that later, but I was scared of you.
That's kind of what I was going to get into.
Yeah.
I think for so long, I'd worked so hard to get to WWE and to be somebody in wrestling. And it just always felt like an uphill battle because you think about it. And this is not me patting myself on the back, but barely 5'10". I don't have the greatest body in the world. Obviously not a great set of hair plugs or anything like that. And I got this accent. So I always felt like I was fighting against something or somebody, because I'm not the typical WWE superstar, or even the typical pro wrestling star you see on TV today. And so, especially when you first came in, Sabby, I feel like I know I did. I don't feel like it. I had this huge chip on my shoulder because I wanted everyone to love and respect wrestling as much as I did. And that wasn't fair to anybody. And I wanted everyone to have to work as hard as I had to work. And that wasn't fair to everybody. And, there were some people like yourself, Sabby, that I warmed up to faster, because I saw that even though you didn't come from professional wrestling and you had a successful football career before, you were diving in head first into wrestling, and you wanted to be the best you could. You always had a notebook. You always took notes. And even if if some of the coaches or whatever, or some of the wrestlers would say things about, oh, but you're the football guy, you would take it on the chin, you'd smile, and you'd keep going, and you'd work hard. So I feel like I warmed up to you quicker than I did a lot of other people there. But yeah, the love and the passion and the respect I have for wrestling was a double-edged sword for me coming up in NXT, because like I said, I felt that everyone had to love it and had to immerse themselves as much as I did. And then thinking back now, this was 12 years ago, 10 years ago, thinking back, I think I was diving in too much, or I was diving in too deep into wrestling, and I'd let it take over my life. I had this beautiful wife, who I love and respected and I admire. And she's, it's God and her, and now my daughter. But at the time it was God and her and wrestling. But I feel like sometime I was putting wrestling on a pedestal above her and God.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't fair to me. It wasn't fair to her, but also it wasn't fair to my coworkers too. And even my coaches, because I would take this chip as a badge of honor. Like I don't know if I can say.
Yeah, you can.
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. But I do. I fucking love this. And if you don't love it as much as I do, then I want you to fail. And that sounds harsh, but I think that's how I felt. And I wasn't in a bad headspace then, but I was in the wrong headspace.
Yeah.
So you saying all those nice things about me, I appreciate that. But I also know that I could have been very difficult to be around, maybe work with. But it all came from a place of love, even though it's something that I love too much.
So
yeah.
No, so I'm so glad you said that. And because you are right. You were a little difficult and you were overwhelming, and I mean this, and I know we got a lot closer as my career went on, because maybe I earned your respect, which is fine. That's the way it should be. Same thing was in football. I had to earn my respect, right?
Yeah.
But why I didn't create any anger towards you is because I actually admired where your chip came from. And I know your chip came from your passion, and your chip came from your love of the industry. And I saw you always studying, always watching matches. And I admired that, because that's what I had to do to become in the NFL and professional football player, because I was so far behind the 8 ball. I started playing at 17. So I was like you. I was like that in football. So when I saw you, I feuded with it at first, and we got in a little, like, not scuffle physical, but like mental. But I admired you, and I was like, man, this man's gonna be a star, because he's not taking no for an answer. And like you said, you're not the prototypical 6'3", 240. Even though I've seen your Instagram, bro, you're getting a little bit of abs, dog. You're getting a little abs, dog. I've seen it.
Hey,
but
it's all about the motherfucking angle.
Hey, I know about them poses.
But that being said, though, and that's why I love that you on the show today, because people got to look at your wall. Number one, you've literally had match of the year everywhere you went to. So I admire that, and that's why, like, for me, I love that you can follow your career, and I'll be the first one to say I don't really watch wrestling as much no more, just because I don't really like even the way how WWE conducts themselves, and maybe we can get into that later. But that being said, if I ever get a chance to watch a match on your Instagram or see a clip, I always watch, because I know you're putting the best one on. But again, you've grown as a professional, and that's what we're supposed to do. And I think that's great knowledge as you're teaching these kids right now, listening to this, you know?
Yeah, and you just showed that you cared so much too. 'Cause
Absolutely.
Daria and I used to always we joke around about it, but Dave and I, we got closer as time went on too. But I was scared of Dave in the beginning. You were like you were locker room leader, obviously, for a while, and you just. You were intimidating a little bit, and I didn't come from wrestling, so of course I'm learning things, and I was a little scared of you in the beginning, but we became closer later on, and I totally understood that it was coming from the right place, but it's because you care so much too, which is such a good thing.
Yeah, but that's also an excuse. I feel that obviously as I've gotten older, I'm able to realize now, but I feel like that's an excuse that a lot of sometimes narcissists take on. You know what I'm saying? They say, "Oh, I love it. I just loved it so much," and I don't know if I ever was a narcissist. I don't think I ever got that far. I'd hope
I know what you
not.
mean, though. Yeah.
But I feel like that's when people are in the wrong, that's kind of their crutch is what they say is they love it and they respect blah blah blah, and all that is true. But as like you said, as time went on, Mandy, you and I became especially on the overseas tours, we became very close. We had our own,
besties.
we had our own like group text and
Remember
everything.
weren't you my nickname on the road? Didn't we have Hope Sabby doesn't get
Oh
mad about
yeah.
this?
No,
Should we tell him?
yeah. Well, we can. I told Maria.
Okay, all right. Well, now I gotta tell him. What was it again?
Yeah.
Were you my
Road husband.
road husband? He was. Dave
The
was
road hubby.
Dave was my road hubby. We all
I
became
think-
really close.
Yeah, I think we were on an overseas tour, and we had like some Jack Daniels and some wine and stuff, and everybody just got like, I don't know, just like very nice and sweet, and that's where that came along.
No, we did for sure. Sorry, our gate's calling us for the house. I've someone coming to the house. So Sabby's got to pick it up real quick. But no, we had some, or he's leaving the podcast because he's so mad that I used to call you my road hubby. I don't know, one of the two. I know.
I hope not. He has, listen, dude. He has.
No, I'm kidding.
He has nothing to worry about with me.
No,
Holy
it was
shit.
good timing for that.
What did he say?
I said you're leaving because you got mad. Dave was my road hubby. No, we had some good times on those trips. A lot of good times. But yeah.
So there's a couple questions I want to dive into real quick. Like I said, you and Dash were at NXT. You took over NXT Match of the Year, Superstars of the Year, Tag Team Champions of the Year. You go up to SmackDown, you go up to Raw, and you just put on banger after banger after banger after incredible matches. Talk to me a little bit about the exit there, because I thought you guys were obviously you were the best tag team ever to wrestle there. But what happened to that transition from you going from WWE to AEW?
From WWE to AEW. We'll kind of back up, I guess, from NXT to the main roster.
Yep.
And I, again, taking that, what we were just talking about, that mindset that I had from NXT, where I knew I had to fight. I knew going into the main roster, it was going to be an even more difficult fight for us, because everything that at the time Vince McMahon loved about a professional wrestler, Dan and I, or Cash and I, were the complete antithesis to that. We were not his bodybuilders. We were not we didn't meet his height requirements. He hates a Southern accent. And so I knew it was going to be a fight on the main roster. And it was, man, almost every day it was a fight. I remember, not even with just Vince and, some of the writers and Bruce Pritchard and all those guys, but it was also sometimes a fight with some of the talent too, because I felt like some of the talent had been there so long, and they understood that Vince probably would never do anything with them. So they kind of, I don't want to say given up, because that's going to sound terrible, but they had just accepted the fact that they were where they were going to be. And so we would be in these matches with some of these guys. Sometimes it would be an 8-man, a 10-man or whatever. And I remember our debut in Madison Square Garden in WWE was a 10-man tag or something. And I was so upset that we were in this throwaway 10-man tag, and I wanted to do something special. And a lot of the guys were kind of upset with us because we were trying to change up the match and do something cool for the match. And I remember telling Dan after that, I said, next time we're in MSG, I don't want to be in a throwaway match. And the very next year, to the day, the same holiday tour, we were in the semi-main event of an MSG show with Chad Gable and Bobby Roode. And I think Authors of Pain for the Raw Tag Team Championship. And I remember being so proud of that moment
Wow.
because we had fought so hard to get there. And so I guess the transition from NXT to WWE was extremely difficult for us because, I think Hunter admired your wrestling and your work, and what you brought to the table in ring more than Vince did at the time. And I think Vince had his idea of what successful professional wrestler is, and obviously it's worked out for him, or it did work out for him, because it had been tried and true, and we were the opposite of that. But I remember we were just looking at the picture, actually, me and Cash. I think it was January of 2019. We had realized that we'd been given some opportunities, and they were never going to fully go with us as the tag team. And we also knew they were never going to fully go with tag team wrestling as a serious contender for the television show and for the pay-per-views and things like that. And so Dan and I had a talk, and we decided we're going to ask for a release. And we had a match against Lucha House Party, and we had asked Hunter and Vince to talk, and they both said that they would get with us when they could. They never got with us, which kind of upset us. And then after our match with those guys, we won the match. We came back in our gear, and we said, Hunter, we'd really like to talk to you now. He said, oh, well, I'll try to get to you in a little bit. We said, no, we want to talk to you now. And he said, okay, give me 10 minutes or something. So we came back, we asked for a release, and with Hunter, and we just said we never feel like we're going to meet our potential of what we want to do in wrestling. Initially, he said, yes, we could have our release. And then a couple of days later, he told us that his exact words were, there's a big wave of change coming, and you guys are involved, and I'd hate for you to miss out on that. So we're going to have you stick around. So we stuck around. And then a year and a half later, the pandemic's about to hit, and Mark Carano calls us and says, if you guys want to leave, we'll give you your release. No 90 days, but you have to sign over all of your trademarks. And at the time, we had trademarked Top Guys, No Flips, Just Fists, all this stuff we came up with. But we wanted out of our contract so bad, we signed over $10,000 worth of trademarks to those guys just so we could get out.
Wow.
And then we, immediately signed with AEW. Tony was extremely happy to have us on the show. He told us that tag team wrestling was gonna be a main focus for the company, and he wanted us to be a main focus for the company. So going over there, it was a bit of a change, because you guys know us, especially Mandy. We all got so close because on the WWE main roster, you were traveling all the time. You traveled more than you were home, and so you got close with a lot of people. And then we go to the AEW, and things have changed, obviously, because the pandemic and a few other things, but there are no house shows. It's all just TV. So you see these people once a week. And at the time we were doing a live show and filming. So we'd see these people once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. And so it was hard to create a bond with people. And then the people we were working with at the time, and I would probably, I know I'd feel the exact same way. Going back to Sabby, you coming from football in NXT, they felt that we were these WWE guys coming into their territory and taking their TV time, and we were going to try to change everything. And so they had, they all felt some sort of they felt some type of way about us, and I don't blame them, but it was hard to create those bonds with people. And then when you don't have the bonds with people, then it's hard to have chemistry and
Absolutely.
hard to have these great matches with them. And so it was a huge transition for us, and one that it was really hard mentally for me, and I think for Dan too.
So fast forward now, obviously, you're still in AEW. How is your position now mentally in that organization? How do you feel now? Do you feel a lot more comfortable? Are you excited what you've done with AEW? Are you looking for something different in the future? How do you feel right now in the present moment?
Yeah, I feel, so June 5th, 2021. I've never ever been through any kind of anxiety or depression, or anything like that. But I had a huge anxiety attack when we were in Jacksonville on June 5th, 2021, and it almost crippled me mentally for a very well. It did for a very very long time, and I realized that I was doing exactly what we talked about earlier with NXT. I was putting too much effort into
Mm-hmm.
wrestling and putting too much time and too much love into wrestling. And I would go to work angry, and I had no reason to be angry. I have, a beautiful family here at home. I was making great money, but I had no reason to be angry, but I was, and I was going to work angry, and I was creating instead of trying to form bonds and friendships with people, and relationships with people. I feel like I was pushing people away,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to a point where I feel like I was enjoying pushing people away, and that was scary to me. And then right after that anxiety attack, Dan cut his arm open, his forearm really really bad on a
I
turnbuckle.
remember that. I saw
Oh,
that match.
yeah.
Yeah, and he like legit almost bled out, and that got him really afraid. And he called me about a week after, and he was crying, and he said, "I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I want to quit wrestling. I'm going to tell Tony that I want to retire and never wrestle again." And he said, "I feel like I'm putting so much out there, and no one cares enough to give anything back to me." And I was like,
Mm.
"Oh man, we're all taking this." He and I, as we
Yeah.
all, we're taking this way too much to heart. And from that moment on, we had this deep conversation where we said, from now on, wrestling is just going to be a thing that we love and enjoy. It can't take over. It can't be our life,
Mm-hmm.
because once you let something aside from your life be your life, that's when everything starts crashing down. That's when things start crumbling down around you. And in we were putting an entertainment form, sports entertainment on a pedestal, to where we were holding things that we loved, like our family and our friends, and my God. And we had this long conversation, and we said, we can't do this anymore. Let's just have fun. And from that moment forward, honestly, dude, so many things have happened, and it's not coincidence. But from that moment forward, everything changed for us. And I feel like that's when the headspace got better. So
Mm-hmm.
all this long-winded answer, getting back to your original question. Now I feel better than I've ever felt. I feel great in the fact that I think Dan and I can rest on the fact that if you don't want to call us the greatest tag team of all time, that's okay, because it's very subjective. But if you're going to have that conversation, you have to have us in there.
Yes.
And
Love it.
that makes me feel like I've done something, because I always said wrestling has done so much for me when I was a fan until now, that I wanted to do just a little bit for it. And I feel like, in saying that, and we have done a little bit for wrestling. So my headspace in wrestling is great. My headspace in AEW is great. The trajectory is going up. We had a little rocky. We had a little rocky patch there for a while, with some things that happened. But I think the company now is closer than it's ever been. We have leadership. We have everybody has a bond. We're all working together to make AEW to make AEW the best promotion possible. Our ratings are doing well. We're always in the top 5. Our attendance is going back up. And I think our stories are coming around, and the storytelling aspect of AEW, I think, has hit an all-time high. But more importantly than my headspace at work and headspace as far as FTR's legacy, my headspace at home is the best it's ever been. I'm able to take care of my perfect wife, my perfect daughter, give
Oh,
them a life that I never could have, that Maria never had as well.
yep.
And her and I are equals in this whole partnership. That's what it is. It is a partnership. And although I'm the one who's bringing in the money, I wouldn't be bringing in the money in.
Absolutely.
I didn't have her support and the things she does at home, like homeschooling our daughter,
Wow.
taking care of our house. She pays the bills. I mean, she is the breadwinner. And you know, even though the checks come in my name, she's the king of this castle
That's
for sure.
awesome,
Oh,
man.
wow. I
And
love that.
there's something I want to touch on that you said right there that is so amazing. And I think it's amazing that you caught this in the middle of your career. Because I caught it at the end of my career, and I'll tell you an example. What you just talked about, the anxiety attack. For me, and this was my problem, I feel like you didn't have enough balance in your life, right? You were so obsessed with just wrestling, and your life was wrestling. And I could relate to that, Dave, because that was me with football. And I had an anxiety attack, same thing in football. And actually, for me personally, I learned it too late when my football career was over. And I was going to bring it to my wrestling career. And I was just like you. I ate, drank, slept, football. We'd be in the club. This is a true story. I'd be with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and we'd be in a club on a Friday night, and I didn't drink. Everyone would be drinking, having fun. I'd lean over to one of my boys. I'd be like, bro, when we play the Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to have this interception when they run this play. And they would look at me and be like, what the F is wrong with you, Sabby? We're in the
trying
middle
to
of the
have some
club
fun."
with a whole bunch of girls around us. You're thinking about 6 weeks from now? And that was me, Dave. Dave, I had no balance, bro. So for me, when my career started going down because of things I really couldn't control being on a losing team, I didn't know how to deal with it. I was 24 years old. Tampa Bay put all the weight on my shoulders. I had the banner on the stadium. And the point I'm just trying to relate to you is I'm really excited that you found that at that point of your career, because now you're probably going to be even more successful because you got that balance in your life. And I actually tell athletes, one of my biggest mistakes I made was being so obsessed with football that I didn't know how to handle the losses per se, the negative part of it. When everything was good and I was balling, oh yeah, success, the obsessity is great, but I had no balance, bro.
But then when shit
Zero.
hit the fan,
Yeah,
it
when-
was
and then
really
when
bad.
shit hit the fan, I didn't know where to turn to, man. And I really give me goosebumps telling that story, because
Yeah.
I'm really happy you found that balance, because now, like you said, you have an amazing wife, an amazing daughter. You have an amazing life, bro, but through all your hard work. So you need to now kind of balance it. And even me and Mandy talk, this is the first time in my life that I'm not chasing nothing. And I'm the happiest I ever been, Dave. The last 2 years, I'll be honest with you, since I've been done with WWE and done with the wrestling and done with football, me and Mandy, our relationship has gone over the moon. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I finally bought my dream home with Mandy. We live in South Florida. We have so many businesses going on, but I just getting goosebumps from hearing you talk, man, because I love to hear a success story. And I really admire that you caught that and you adjusted it, and now you're going to be even a bigger star because you're going to appreciate every moment. Like before, you probably would put on the match of the year, you go home and you study for another match instead of saying, man, I just put on the match of the year.
And just being more in the moment
Yep.
too, though. Like, I'm sure Maria notices it, and your daughter. And it's like just being more in the moment and just having that balance, and, realizing kind of like, I don't want to say wrestling's not important because it's your job, and we all wouldn't really, most of us wouldn't be here right now with all the success and all. But it's like realizing what is really the most important thing in your life, and that is your daughter and your wife, and focusing on that. And I love like how your bio, I was looking on your Instagram earlier, and how your bio says like dad, husband, and wrestler on the side, right? It says, I think I quoted it. Yeah, wrestler on the side, which I love because for someone like you, knowing Dave when we first met,
Absolutely.
and I think this is full circle, in NXT, and I could tell you were obsessed with it. And to, me looking from the outside in, I didn't really think anything was really wrong with that, because obviously you're super passionate about it, and this is how you're successful in this business, is because you kind of have to be obsessed, and we've talked about that. But I think finding that balance is so important, and we've found it too now, and I think all three of us could relate that there was a point in our life where it might have seemed hectic, and just when something did happen, and there's just so much politics involved too, that like when
If you get caught up in it, it'll drive you crazy.
Exactly.
It'll drive you crazy, man.
You
You
get
know
caught
that.
up, and you know who to fall back on, though. Your wife was always there for you through everything, and I think that's just it's really amazing to hear. So I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, and you said, Mandy, you said like you said something like, I don't want to say wrestling isn't important, but it really isn't. that important. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it is important because it does provide money for me and my family.
Yep.
But in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, when I'm done with wrestling, it's going to be awesome to be able to say that I was part of one of the greatest tag teams of all time. That's going to be great.
Yep.
It's going to be awesome to tell, like I said, my grandchildren and whoever else, like, this is what I did. But at the end of the day, I just want Maria to say you were the best husband. I just want Finley to say you were the best dad. And wrestling really, it's not that important. I love it, but it really isn't. And Sabby, you said you were 24 or whatever when this realization happened and like things started, I don't crashing down. Was that whenever like you had the understanding like, oh my God, I'm going through this anxiety attack or like this anxiety?
Well, for me, I remember, I always say this, everything I was working for in my life and I was setting the goals, it was all coming true, right? I was like, all right, I'm going to be a college starter, became a college star. I was like, oh, I'm going to be All-American. I became an All-American. Okay, I want to be a first, second round pick. Okay, I became a second round pick. I want to be an NFL starter. Okay, I became an NFL starter. Then I was like, I want to make a Pro Bowl and get that big deal to retire my family. And the year of 2009 was the changing point and the crashing down point for me because I didn't know how to handle the adversity of being blamed for everything, being in the spotlight. And I put a lot of emphasis on myself. So for me personally, my career wasn't over then, but my career took a downward spiral big time, and it probably derailed it from making the money that I should have made to retire my family. I mean, don't get me wrong, I made good money and I saved it. I'm very grateful, but it was a turning point in my career. And I had a couple more years in Kansas City, but I never really got my bearings going. But when I listen to you speak, you caught it, changed it, and you're still in your career, and now you're probably even more successful.
Well, yeah, that's what. How old were you?
I was, when I had that come down, I was 24 going on 25 years old. I was young.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, it's easy for me. Maybe not easy, but it's way easier for me at the time I was 37 to catch it, because you're so much more mature in life.
Absolutely.
And you think the way you carry yourself. But at your mid-20s to 30, I couldn't imagine having that much success and then having that much change in my life and then having to find a way to deal with it. Like
at such a young age.
It was I tell Mandy a lot, Dave, and it's funny now that I'm 40, I actually, like you just said, it really isn't that important what we accomplish. It doesn't really matter. Like it's like you said, God's first. There's not a day I wake up where I don't prayer, and there's not a night I go to bed where I don't get on my knees and pray. And I'm so grateful and I'm so appreciative of what God has done in my life. And it's kind of helped me let go of what I thought I failed at. Even the WWE, man, I don't want to get into me or anything like this, but I really felt Tino as a character had a special gift, and they never used that gift. And I had guys like Dusty Rose and Scott Hall pull me into a room and say, bro, you got that it. Like, don't let them ever tell you. So there was a bitterness of me with that. But then what allowed me to let it all go was just looking at my beautiful fiance every day, looking at my beautiful home every day, and just being grateful for what I accomplished. And I think that changed my whole perspective in life, that I want everybody to be successful, and I will help anybody successful. Because you know what? I was very blessed. I was an All-American, second-round pick. I got to play in NFL, and I got to wrestle with guys like you in the WWE. So what do I have to be bitter about, right? So that would change my whole mentality in life. Like, I wasn't bitter no more at Triple H. Like, I can care less about you, but I don't have a lot of respect for him as a man, the way he handles himself. But I'm not bitter anymore, brother. Like, I'm grateful in a sense. So to hear you speak and you're still in your prime and on top of the game, I just love it, man. And I admire your work ethic. And I do want to piggyback a question for the fans that listen to you. I want you to talk a little bit about your routine, your commitment, your consistency, because obviously you're so successful. I want to know where it comes from, because people that listen to this podcast, I preach a lot about routine, consistency, hard work, and sacrifice. Talk a little bit about that, about what Dave's routine is like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the routine is just your upbringing. And I think it's something that's either instilled in you when you're young or you learn it yourself through adversity when you have to deal with yourself. And I didn't come from I know this is a typical story for someone who's reached success, but I didn't come from a very wealthy family. I didn't come from money at all. But also, and I've had conversations with my mom and my dad about this. I also feel that things were so tough for them because they divorced at a young age for me. And they were separated, or they were living separate lives and having to provide by themselves. Now they didn't have anyone to help, so they were working their ass off. But I feel, and they both apologized to me for the life that we had and how they treated me. But I feel that I didn't have a great relationship with my mom, and I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. Not that things went wrong, but there was no love there. You know what I mean? Like I never felt that that gratification of being loved and making your parents proud. And I don't think they did it on purpose. I think it was just their thought was, okay, how do I get through to the next day?
Yeah.
But I remember in fifth grade, I was in the bedroom with my best bud, and we were watching WWE Raw, and on the TV screen it was Bret Hart and Diesel, and it was a split screen.
Oh, okay.
And they're hyping up their pay-per-view match at Survivor Series. And I remember looking at my friend and I said, hey, I'm in fifth grade, which is where my daughter is going to go next year. So this
Wow.
makes it even more emotional for me. But I remember looking at him, I said, do you know if your dad loves you? And he said, yeah, I know my dad loves me. I said, man, I don't know if my dad loves me. Because we just had that. He was he still is, but very hard nosed, tough love kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I've never met someone who worked as hard as him, and worked at a more laborious job than he did. So he would come home and he would be beat to death, and he would just lay in his couch and we wouldn't speak. And it sucked. But I think that I always knew that I wanted to have a relationship, the complete opposite, the 180 of what my mom and dad had.
Yeah.
And that was with Maria. And I knew that if I had kids, I wanted to treat them. I wanted them to know that they were loved. And I knew to do that I had to work my ass off. And I knew that the only thing I wanted to do was be a wrestler my whole life. My whole life has been either I want to be a Power Ranger or a professional wrestler.
Can't be a Power Ranger.
That was out.
Can't be a Power Ranger, yeah.
That's great.
But I put myself through college. I went to the University of North Carolina in Wilmington, and I paid for all of my tuition, all of my books, all of my housing, all of my bills. I worked 3 jobs. I was just talking to Maria about this yesterday. I don't know how I would wake up in the morning and open up a vitamin store as the manager of a vitamin store, and I'd work until 5 p.m. there, go home and shower, go to the gym, I'd go to the gym first, come home and shower. Then I'd go into a DJing job, and I DJ'd from 8 p.m. until 3 a.m. in the morning. And I'd do it all over again the very next day, on top of 18-hour credit hours of school.
Wow.
And so, and when Maria and I started dating, I had actually taken a semester off of college, and taking that semester off, I was taking it off to save money. But then when that semester got over, I was like, maybe I'll just, because I was making good money as a DJ and I was making good money at the manager at a vitamin store. Maybe I'll just not go back, or maybe I'll just take another semester off. And then her and I got really serious, and I told myself, if I'm going to marry this girl, I have to finish college, because I've got to have this backup plan if this wrestling thing doesn't work out. So, knowing again my limitations physically, and what I wanted to provide for my hopefully soon to be family, I knew I had to work hard, and I had to be better than everybody else, because Sabby, you're 40. I turned 40 in just a month, and brother, I don't look nearly as good as you do. So I knew I didn't have the model looks going for me, and I knew I didn't have the height. And I knew I'd never have the body, and I knew I couldn't get rid of this accent. So what could I do better than everybody else then? Because I couldn't do those things better, and the only thing I could do better was try to be a better wrestler than everybody.
Awesome.
And then as I got older and my body starts deteriorating, I have to say, okay, if I can't be the best wrestler in the world, what can I do in wrestling that is better than everybody else's? And whether that's punching people or being physical or being aggressive, like that's what I latch onto, because that's those, even though it's not technically a goal, small goals are when you reach greatness. And those small goals of trying to be the best at something is what always, always lifted me up. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I always knew I was going to be successful. And I was never was it an ego thing, but I always knew I had to be successful because I fucking love her so much.
But just even hearing you talk, you had no limitations. Your work ethic was endless, and you would do whatever you had to do to either pay for tuition, get in wrestling school, or provide. And you know what? Right there, Dave, that is a prime example for anybody listening to Power Alphas, where we talk about this podcast, is I hope everyone's listening. This man is extremely successful in his industry because of his work ethic. And you develop that at a very young age.
Well, we've all done that, but all three of us have.
Definitely.
You don't reach there's a very small percentage that reaches the success. And I say this not as a pat on the back, but something that I'm proud of. And I'm sure you guys too. And I'm proud for you guys. There's a small percentage of people in the world who reach success in what they want to accomplish just by happenstance or just because of who their family is.
Right.
To reach a certain level of success, you have to work hard. You
Absolutely.
Have to be better than everybody at something.
Yep.
And you have to keep working at it. So, I appreciate you saying that about me, but I think that goes for all three.
Well, everyone listens to this podcast, and I make a joke, but unless you win the lottery, I've never met a millionaire by accident ever in my life.
Right.
Ever. I've never met a millionaire by accident. So that to me, and I even put a video on my Instagram yesterday. I was working out. Is like, you can't fake work ethic, right? Can't fake it. And you had it since you were a kid. And even you talking about your parents, I know you have some stuff about your parents, but your parents, maybe you not knowing, instilled that work ethic. They gave you, like you said, you saw your dad, how hard he worked. So it's amazing to hear you talk about that, man. It really is.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's good to be able to come on here and talk about that stuff and not get myself in trouble because
yeah, right. I just also love, Dave, though, how when you speak about Maria, and you've always spoke about Maria like this, and we all, would be on tour and everything, and just how such an amazing woman she is. But I just love that you do put her first at the end of the day. And maybe you had some bumps along the road in the sense of your career and the balance, right? Because we all have. But we sometimes will talk about like professional athletes, and this is any sport, and it's hard. Like certain athletes that can't really put their career to the side because because of their family or vice versa. And it, it's sad, but it's also like you sometimes you say, that's the reason why they're so successful. And I get that for sure. You have to kind of be obsessed with it, but I think it's really great to know that there is that balance and kind of just putting into perspective of like what's really the most important thing in life, and for your future.
It is nice.
So it's awesome. And we really appreciate having you on here.
Oh, dude, thank you. It doesn't come without, there's some days where it is hard for me, to kind of have that balance. There's some days where I do take wrestling to heart, and I've never ever in life.
We know.
You
used to make Daria cry. She'll never forget that story. Kidding.
I never. If I have something on my heart, it's hard for me to not share it.
Of course.
And my wife has always said this about me. She said, you always want to see justice done, whether it's right or wrong. Like whether the justice that I want to see done is warranted or not is what she means.
Yep.
And so sometimes I see these podcasters, and this is such a refreshing take, but I see these podcasters who do watch our show, right? And who do watch AEW and knowing that AEW is good for the business because one, we're providing counter content to WWE, which makes them work harder.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving all wrestlers, all staff, another avenue of revenue.
Yep.
And what these podcasters do now is they watch our show and then just shit on it, and they use that for their content. And so my thought is, if you hate something so much in life, why would you continue to put yourself through it? And
Right,
so,
right.
so things like that, things like that is when my heart does come out on my sleeve, and I have to say something. But
Absolutely.
then I have to reel myself back in and say, okay, it's not that important.
Yeah.
But I love the
But that's,
passion.
yeah, and we all are
Yeah,
like that, right?
So,
For
Dave,
sure.
listen, man, I can't thank you enough. But as we wrap up, I ask all our guests this, man, and obviously you're a very incredible candidate to give some good advice. I just want you to end this. Give some advice out there to either wrestling fans or people to inspire to be wrestlers or anything in life. Give some advice that you would give to any youngster or anybody even going through something that could, kind of give them a good day. I just want to hear some words of wisdom from you.
Yeah. For me, whenever I was going through my anxiety, and it was the most crippling, like I said, most crippling time of my life. And it's something that you battle with every day. It's never going to just go away, right?
Hmm.
You just hope that each day is good, and
Mhm.
each day you do well and you feel well. But when I was going through it really, really bad, I had a great therapist that I talked to, and she told, and my anxiety, for some reason, my anxiety stemmed from what I thought was sleep, right? And then that's the form that it came in. The anxiety came in was my sleep. Like when I'd get so worried that I wouldn't be able to sleep and get good rest that I'm honestly I was getting maybe an hour of sleep a night,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and so when I started talking to her, she was like, "Well, tell me about yourself." And I told her about basically this whole podcast, and she said, "Well, to me, it sounds like you're a perfectionist." And I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I've never thought about it, but I think for a lot of things, I think I am." She said, "You want to be the perfect father, you want to be the perfect husband, you want to be the perfect wrestler," and she said, "All that is unattainable." She said that if you strive for perfection, you'll never reach it,
Mm.
and then so you'll always be failing yourself. And she said, it's admirable that you want to be the perfect father, but just as long as you show up, that's what's going to count to your daughter. As long as you show up.
Mhm.
If you show up at 50%, that's okay. If you show up at 80%, that's okay, as long as you show up. She said, you can't show up at 100% every time. And she gave me one quote, and I'm sure a million people have heard it before, but she said, progress over perfection.
Love
As
it.
long Yeah, as long as you strive to be better than what you thought you were before, that's all that matters. She said there's going to be some days where you jump 3 steps ahead and you've progressed, and there's some days when you're going to go backwards, but that's okay. That's life, because either way you're still progressing forward. And so I put that on my refrigerator, and I always
Love it.
think about that, is progress over
I
perfection.
love that. You
That's
versus you, man.
amazing.
You
Yeah.
versus you. I preach that in my Instagram. You versus you. I love that, man.
Yep,
That's
for
awesome.
sure.
Well, listen, Dave. Unbelievable. You came on, man. You killed it. It was a pleasure to
Uh,
speak with you. Keep doing your thing in wrestling, and tell my boy Dash over there I said hi.
Yes.
I will. I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate you. It's easy to say now at almost 40 years old, but I appreciate you guys both putting up with me.
Oh, no. You made me a
Especially
better wrestler, man. I will tell you that.
well, but yeah, okay, and I appreciate that, and I do believe that I'll say it unapologetically. I've told you a million times, WWE dropped the ball, and I don't think WWE did. I think a specific person did, and we know who that specific person is, and we know we all have a thought as to why that specific person dropped the ball
Oh,
with
I have
me.
a thought.
Yeah, I think we all. I think a lot of us do.
Do we have more time
But
for this? No, I'm kidding.
yeah, yeah, I didn't think I was going to get in trouble today. But at 40 years old, it's easy. It's so easy to go back and reflect and understand that you weren't always right. And especially you, Sabby, because I know, Mandy, you said you were maybe a little intimidated by me, but I feel that we grew very close, and I feel like Sabby and I did too. But I feel like I made Sabby work harder to
Oh
get
yeah,
closer to me,
absolutely.
and I shouldn't have.
Mhm.
And that's the way I carried myself. Even though as a professional, it was it was I became respected in the locker room. I didn't like how I carried myself to a lot of the new guys and made them think that they had to work to get my approval. And I wish I wouldn't have done that. So in closing, I appreciate the friendship that we all formed. Sabby, I didn't get to travel with you as much as I did Mandy, especially in those later years. But those are some of the fondest memories I have in wrestling, especially in WWE.
Me too.
You guys made it so much easier for me when I was away from Rhea and Finley. Like I would, there were times where I would cry in my hotel, and because I missed them so much. But you guys made a road family. The road family made it so much easier for me.
So much easier.
Sabby,
you're right.
Working with you was always a blessing, and hearing your thoughts and how hard you worked was always a blessing too. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me and never giving up on me. And I thank you for having me on. I love it.
Oh, thank
you. Keep having match of the year, brother. Every year. Keep having the match of the year.
Thanks,
right,
Dave.
I'll talk to you later.
We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, buddy.
It.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Great episode. Dave's an amazing man. So we appreciate you guys for listening. And don't forget, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, OFTV. And we'll see you guys soon.